Welcome to the Graceful Exit podcast. I'm Kimberly Hertz, founder of the Graceful Exit, created to educate, empower, and support women as they navigate divorce. Beginning with us, we are putting a stop to the divorce stigma through meaningful conversations about the emotional and endearing experience divorce often brings. My hope is that you'll follow along on this journey and join our community of women navigating divorce with grace. Welcome, everybody. I have the opportunity today to interview one of the women in our community by the name of Shana, Clements, and she has been willing to share her story about the divorce journey. She happens to be post 13 years divorce and on the other side. So with that, I welcome you, Shana, and thanks for taking the time out to share your story. I know a lot of us get robbed of a lot of things in it. And sometimes it's our voice and our story. So I just commend you for being able to come on here and share your voice and your story with us. So I'll let you introduce yourself both professionally and personally and where you are at.
So thank you for having me. It feels really, really good to be 13 years out. I really feel a big difference. I would say probably in even just the last year or two of just really, really feeling like the pain is gone, which I didn't feel like that could ever happen or whatever happens. It was just so deep.
Yes.
And so I'm really grateful for that. And just to tell a little bit about myself, I got married really young. I was 19 when I got married, and it was somebody I met through my church. And we had 3 children together and lived in California for most of that time. And then about 4 years before the divorce, we actually moved to Austin, Texas. And so I lived out there away from family and ended up going through a divorce. It was a betrayal situation. It was something that was a problem throughout the entire marriage. And it was something I really tried to hang on to for the sake of my kids. And I think that's probably a very common theme is I think, as mothers, the thought of having our children go through that kind of pain and separation is almost, I think, unbearable. And so I spent a lot of time trying to hold on and repair and fix. And it was only after a certain point, I just realized I didn't have control over that or over another person's choices. And so, the marriage ended, and we'd been married for almost 16 years. And then I kind of went through the process of being a divorcee, which I never wanted to be. And, but it actually turned into a really special part of my life that I really look back fondly on now, which again, I can't believe I'm saying that, but it just turned into this really special time. And I'll talk a little bit more about why. And then about 2 years after I got divorced, I met Sean, who is my husband now, and we've been married for almost 10 years. Wow. And we had very similar situations with our spouses, and we're both left with the children in each of our situations. And he's just an incredible person. He is the most kind, loving, unselfish. He's an amazing person. And I think there were a lot of miracles and things that happened to bring us together. And so I'm very, very happily married. I live in Utah. I work at Brigham Young University in Provo. My husband also works at BYU, and he's in the broadcasting side of it. I actually work in a department where we support marginalized students at BYU. So students of color, students that are LGBTQ+, and it's been a wonderful experience. It's very, very touching to work with people who are just brave on a daily basis, just being themselves. I've learned so much from them. So I'm really, really grateful. And again, never thought I'd be in this position. I had never worked up until my divorce. And it's taken me a while to get where I am right now. But again, it's just the blessings just kept coming after the divorce. And that doesn't mean it wasn't painful, but I can really see how moving through a marriage where someone else's choices were so draining and being separate from that has really, really enabled me to come back to who I am and who I've always been.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like I'm in a really good spot now. And I have a lot of friends who are going through divorces, and my main thing is I just want to promise them like this will get better. And it didn't really help when people told me that. I'm like, I don't want time to pass. That sounds so hard, but it really is what has to happen. But I think there are a lot of things you can do to make that time productive and even special and amazing. And
So that,
so,
yeah,
yeah.
that's exactly the part of the Graceful Exits mission is really to share other women's story, to know that you're not going through it alone, that there is hope on the other side. And you're such a great example of that. Help me understand that special period in your time. So right when you filed divorce, how old were your kids? And then for that couple year period, what did that look like in navigating, and why was it what you referred to as special, which I think is absolutely incredible?
Well, thanks. So my children I have three. I have two girls and then a boy.
Mhm.
And my son, the youngest, he was 8. And then my middle child, she was 11. And then the oldest, she was about 13.
Mhm.
And I think,
Hard ages, no matter which way you go through it.
well,
The,
I
the
think
preteens are hard.
yeah, they know too much, you can't really gloss over things. And
Mhm.
a couple things that were really, really challenging. The first was um, my previous spouse and I never really fought. And so it was more about his personal issues and not really about us not getting along. And so our children really felt secure in our family and in our marriage. And that's something I kind of grappled with for a long time of maybe I shouldn't have protected him so much. But again, just another thing I'll say is I really believe that the way we go through things is kind of the way it's supposed to be. And I think there are lessons to learn from all of that. So it was really hard. It was very shocking for them
Mhm.
and very, very sad. It was just sad. And it was vague too, because how can a child understand the essence of what betrayal issues are. And, I wanted to protect them from that as much as possible and still keep a relationship in place with their dad. Um, at the time, I was really just heartbroken and angry, but my mom had been divorced actually a couple of times and had really gone through that completely by herself.
Oh,
And she never, when my dad and my mom got divorced, I was 5. And from 5 till 47, which I am right now, I've never heard my mom say one negative thing about my dad.
wow.
And he was gone, like there was no relationship. And she just never was negative about him. And it just was easier on me, I think. And so I tried really, really hard to kind of keep myself in my own lane,
Mhm.
and let them kind of figure out what their relationship would be with someone who, had a lot of issues and had a lot of things that he needed to work through himself.
Mhm.
And I think that's been a really good decision. Looking back, my children are all in their 20s now, and I have grandchildren now, which is
Mhm.
also amazing. But I think they look back and really appreciate that I did not uh, talk down their father, no matter how hurtful all of it was.
And I think
That,
that's
that
so,
wasn't easy.
yeah,
I'm sure it was not easy to do that
no,
sometimes because you
yeah,
want to justify your where
why?
you're at. Yeah,
Yes.
and I really went through a period of time of wanting to make sure people knew it wasn't my fault, you know?
Mhm.
And so I would word things in a way of, it was really bad and it was really hard for me, trying to kind of show that it was all on this one side. And I just kind of let go of that because I don't think anyone cares, to be honest. Like
No,
they're
no,
not living it, And so
yeah.
I just kind of learned to just let that piece go. And I didn't have to try to explain somehow vaguely that it wasn't my fault. And
Yeah.
um, but yeah, that was really difficult. with the kids to just kind of have it just really blow up all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
And it was incredibly shocking. But again, I don't know what I could have done differently, because at the time that just felt like I felt like I had to protect them from things that were just too much for a child. And so that had consequences to it. And, but overall, I still think it was the right decision. But
yeah. How
I
about
think
that period in your life, that 2-year period? What was the joyful part about it? I know as hard as it is going through the thick of it, I know I was able to find some joy in the independence and freedom of,
Right.
living your life the way you intended it, I guess. And so
Mhm.
curious to know your thoughts about that period of your life and how you found it so special.
It was, I think at the beginning, it was little things like just having the remote to yourself. Like I would laugh about those things, like, well, at least I get the remote, but it really was kind of, like you said, it was really freeing. And I think once I was completely on my own and the divorce was final and we were living in separate places, that really helped me so much, because I feel like I got a big piece of peace and quiet in my life. And my life wasn't easier. There were, it was so hard to be a single mom and really provide for my kids completely on my own for a period of time. But um, it just, I don't know. It was, sorry, I've lost my train of
No, that's
thought. I'll have
okay.
to edit this part. Um,
The special period of it.
Special period.
Yeah.
Yes.
What
Yeah.
made
So the other part of that was, um, after a while, I started to notice that because I wasn't having to protect this private life of someone else and all that entailed, I was always very guarded during my marriage. And so I didn't really have deep friendships. I wasn't close to my family, which is crazy, because I was so close to my mom and sister before my marriage, and it just dwindled.
yeah.
And so after, all of that just flooded back, and I could really feel that ability and that desire to have deep relationships with people, because there was nothing holding me back anymore.
Right. There's nothing hiding. Yeah.
No, there's nothing to hide. And that is the best part of my life, is the transparency of my life. Like I am what you see. Like there's no hidden agenda, there's no secret, there's no there's nothing like that anymore.
Yeah.
And that began the process of feeling like, wow, this is an incredible period of time for me, because I've lived in this kind of prison for so long. And now it's up to me. My life can be exactly what I want it to be.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful. Like the best friends I have ever had in my whole life. There's multiple. Those friendships all came after my divorce. And because I was myself again. And I'm really grateful for that, because looking back, I can see how hollow I'd become, and I'm not hollow anymore. And that is a beautiful, beautiful blessing in my life. I'm so grateful. It was so worth it just for that piece.
Gosh, you describe it so perfectly though. And I can relate on so many levels, is that I describe it as I look back and take accountability for what went wrong in ours, is I lied as much as he did, in the sense that I was protecting that image. And once I broke that and was able to live freely and truly without any lies, you're stripped of everything and become so vulnerable. But to your point, that's when the most connections happen in life, and these deep friendships. And you truly do know who your true friends are post-divorce. I think it's so important. And then how about, were you the first of your family to get divorced?
No.
Or your friends?
I mean, my to be fair, I don't think anyone had really been divorced in my family until my mom was divorced from my dad. And she my sister's also been divorced after me. She's my only sibling. And so yeah, the three of us have been through that. Now we all have that in common. And I think it really helped us support each other, especially my mom. My mom she just became just a huge loyal support base to me. And that's one of my biggest pieces of advice is find your people and utilize them during this period of time. Um, for me, it was church. It was my church community. It was my mom and my sister, and then it became friends. And I just felt like during those really, really yucky, hard times during the divorce and after the year or so after, I knew who to go to at different points in time. And I really think that was like a heavenly direction for me. So if I was feeling like just very overwhelmed or very sad or whatever the thought was, I would just have this feeling of like, I think I need to call so and so and just to talk. It's not like they're solving anything for me, but I could feel kind of like, I think I should reach out to this person. And I would get support from people. And I think you have to have that. Like you have to find it if you don't have it. And just be open. I think so much more is accomplished in relationships and just for you personally going through a divorce when you are honest about where you've been, because I think honesty really connects people. And at this point in time in life and how crazy the world is, we all have problems. Like we're not helping each other by pretending to have this facade. And so, I think it's just being very, very open with people that you trust, of course. I mean, there were a lot of people that I would never have shared things with just because I just knew it wasn't the right thing. And, but just having that support system around you and finding that where you can, like look for it, find it, grab it and utilize it. I think it's just really important so you don't feel alone because it is the loneliest feeling, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think the sense of community, knowing that you're not going through this alone, I think brings so much value because you do feel like you're on an island and that nobody can understand and empathize with you.
Right.
But this is why I'm so passionate about sharing other stories is that look, there's so many of us that have been through it and that have made it to the other side. It's not been easy, but here's some real life examples of what it looks like,
Right.
How about as far as trusted professionals, did you have any idea of how to even navigate divorce back then?
I had a counselor that was really key. I found her through my church, which I think if you can have some type of referral or somebody that has the same faith as you, or you can kind of figure out what their approach is going to be, is make sure it aligns with your values and your goals of what you're wanting for yourself. I think I think it's essential and really necessary. And it's just another thing I'm really grateful for because spending that time with her was just, it taught me, it really changed how my brain works. Like it gave me a lot of structure to know and understand how to deal with stress and difficulty. And it gave me a lot of strength and tools that I needed. So that is a huge, huge thing that I think really needs to happen. And it's also just good, I think, to have somebody where you can say whatever you want. You don't have to like protect. You don't have, right. It's just, you can say what you need to say. And sometimes I think that's really important.
So part of the name and how I came up this was the graceful exit. And you've shared an extreme example of defining grace, but I'm curious to know, what does grace mean to you?
Grace for me, it has a really spiritual kind of lens to it. I got to a certain point in my divorce where, and just to be very vulnerable here, where even though I had this marriage with this person who was doing things that were just so hurtful and destructive, I still loved him and I still wanted things to work and for a period of time. And, he got to a point where he just absolutely was done and was not willing to, there was no like, please forgive me at the end. It was just like, it was over and on his side. And so I got to a point one night where, all my friends and the counselor and my mom and all those things were great. But there were moments where I felt like no one knows how this feels, because no one's experienced all the things that I've experienced.
Right.
Sorry. Does that sound horrible?
Oh, you're good.
For medicine, can you believe that? Anyways, so on this particular night, I just felt that full realization of nobody understands this except for me and my own religion.
Mm-hmm.
It was Jesus Christ, and I felt like he's the only person that gets it and really, really gets it, and paid a price for me to be able to have relief from that.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to think that atonement that he made was just for when I made mistakes or sinned or something. But this period of time really taught me that it was also to heal my heartbreak and to heal the pain that had been caused for so long. And so that power to like help me heal and to fill the holes that had been created. That's when you feel that grace, that's what grace is to me. It's a miracle to have that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I absolutely love that. It's just a perfect recap of what it means. Part of it is about forgiveness as well. And to your point, it's this pain that so many people have caused, but you can't live with that your entire life. It will just kill you and drive you down.
Right.
And so it's just important to move on, forgive, and find that hope on the other side.
I also think, I think something that's really important too is being really patient with yourself in forgiving. I think sometimes we think with a religious lens that, the sooner you forgive, the better, and you just need to forgive. And I understand that. But I also think that forgiveness is a process. And so you have to progress in that. I don't see it as a one-time thing. And I think people get stressed about that. Like, why am I still so mad? Or if I could just forgive, I would feel peace. Or, there's all these things that we do that we're so hard on ourselves. And I think we have, especially during this time, you have to give yourself a break and be merciful to yourself, because it's so hard to do that. And it happens. It happens over time. But I also think that forgiveness comes in the form of protecting yourself too. And so for me, forgiveness has been more of just stepping out of that person's sphere of influence and letting him, go on his own path of doing whatever he needs to fix the things he needed to fix. And me being over here, just living the best life that I can and know how to do. Is that to me is forgiveness too, where you just kind of separate yourself and do your best to be pleasant and kind and not speak down about the person in front of your kids. And that's a form of forgiveness too, I think. And I worry sometimes that people get so anxious with themselves. Like, why am I still feeling like this? And just honestly, it's so gut wrenching that it takes a lot of time to get past that. And it should. I mean, it's what you wanted and believed in and worked for, and dreamed about. And it, when it ends, it's going to take a period to get through. And we have to be patient with ourselves. I think we owe that to ourselves too. Like you've earned that patience with yourself. And so.
Yeah. So what are some tangible pieces of hope that you can offer now that you are in this loving relationship on the other side? I know one thing is that there are good humans out there that you will find. I mean, you're a perfect example of, a new blended family that has made it 10 years in marriage, and, you're obviously doing something right. So what's some examples of hope that you can offer?
I think as far as hope, I would say be open to non-traditional things or what you think you might have someday. And I remember trying to do that, thinking, well, maybe I'll marry I'll meet a widower, or I'll meet someone who's never been married before. Maybe I'll marry someone who has kids, but I don't really want to do that because I don't want to blend a family. That sounds really hard to me. Yeah. But guess who I met? Somebody with a family. And with Sean, I think the best thing about Sean is I realized during that period of time what was really important to me. And it wasn't as much, and he knows this. So please, no one think that this is a knock on Sean at all. But it wasn't as much about, having this fit, cool guy anymore. It was about meeting somebody who was just genuine and honest and loving and kind. And that isn't always going to come in the easiest package. And part of that is, bringing other kids into the family. It is incredibly hard to blend a family. And there have been a lot of worries and concerns about that and stress over that. But that all works itself out, I think, over time. And another thing I would say is I think people all blend differently, but for Sean and for me, what we decided to do is we tried really hard not to put any pressure on our kids. We didn't want to make them try to blend. And I think, every way of trying to blend a family has its pros and cons, but we tried to they didn't ask for this. And so we tried really hard to just have everyone get along the best they could and be patient with where each child was, because there were, kids were affected different ways and had their own trauma and their own things. And, but being open to that and realizing that if you meet somebody that is, aligns with what you want and need and love, then you can work all of those things out. And I think the other main thing is I did get to a point, I didn't date at all for 2 years. And I think I came to a point where I realized I'm never going to get married again unless it's somebody that I know that I can trust. I would rather be by myself and I would be happy by myself. I have a good life, and really sticking to that and being as confident in myself as I could about that, of like, I'm not going to settle for something because I'm lonely. I'm going to fill those holes in other ways. And if the right person comes along and I feel like that's the right thing for me, then I am all in. But I was very willing to be alone. And I think that's kind of an important piece. With the hope that you will, I mean, no one wants to be alone, and I hoped that I would meet somebody, but I also knew that, I don't know, it just taught me that marriage is wonderful and great, but I could get love and fulfillment in other relationships and really enjoy it for the first time in my life and count on it. And I think that was kind of key in not rushing into anything, is I felt like I've got my people, and so if someone comes along, great. But if they don't, that's okay. And I'm good on my own, but I dated a few people before I dated Sean, and I'm talking one date with one person, one date, but that was it. I mean, I did not date, and it started to feel familiar to me. And when it started to feel familiar, I'm like, this is not the right thing for me. It feels kind of the same as my marriage in some way. And I don't know what it is, but I just would be done immediately. Like, I don't want to ever feel that again. It was too painful. So I think it's just that hope of you have a future, and it's yours to kind of control right now.
Yeah. So many, I've been asked the question is, how did you learn to trust again? So curious to know your answer, because obviously, it took you some time, but you learned to open your heart out again. And
just with Sean, the way that we met was kind of interesting. We actually knew of each other a really long time ago when our children were very little. We were in the same church congregation. I barely remember him. I think I probably said hi to him once in the hall, and that's it. Never saw him again. That the congregation kind of split by, area, and after a year, and never saw him. About 2 years after my divorce, I was starting to date a little bit, and I get this Facebook friend request from Sean Clements, and thinking, is that guy, I mean, this is how little I knew. Is that the guy from the congregation? But, however many, 15 years ago or whatever much time it had been. And so I just clicked on it, saw that we had one mutual friend who I adore and trust. And I just thought, I don't care. I just clicked it. But for him, that was a really big deal to reach out that way. It's not his normal way. And so when I accepted that, he felt like, oh shoot, now I have to do the next thing. And so what happened is he wrote just a nice little note to me. And I thought, okay, I'll reply. And he must be single now, because this would be so weird if he was married and writing to me. So we just started talking. And what I loved about him is I could kind of recognize that we had dealt with the kind of the trauma of betrayal with a spouse. And we dealt with it really similarly. And so I could hear it in the way he would describe things. And we actually wrote for a long time. We didn't talk on the phone. We didn't meet each other. And it really gave me a chance to get to know Sean really well. And then I cheated also because that mutual friend, that one friend on Facebook, I called her.
I love it.
And she had grown up with him. Total references. And so she'd grown up with him, and she's still a good friend of mine, very good friend of his, like a sister to him. And I just called her and said, tell me about Sean Clements. And her husband just had really good things to say about him. And they'd known him since he was a teenager. And so I felt that gave me even more confidence, but it was really about Sean. Like, it was about feeling his genuine self. He is who he is. There's no pretense. And I think you get really good at sensing that too. So I think people need to trust themselves. If you kind of know when someone's maybe not the best, and so when you meet somebody who's just truly genuine and truly loving and kind and thinks kind of similarly to you, like it was just this incredible experience. When he finally came out, as I was still in Texas, when he finally came out to Texas, I picked him up from the airport. We had not seen each other in however long it had been. And it shocked me because he's older than I am. He's 11 years older than me. Again, not what I expected, right?
Right.
And when I saw him, I could see the age difference a little bit, and it kind of like startled me. But he got in the car, and his voice was just this calming thing for me, because I had talked to him for a long time before he came out. And then I just got acclimated to that. It was just knowing someone pretty well, but not knowing how their facial expressions move because you haven't seen them. It was kind of weird, it was kind of surreal, but he was just everything I had come to know that he was over those months and months that we'd communicated without actually seeing each other. And it was just so worth it. It was so worth it to wait for this person who I know he just wanted to make me happy, and I wanted to make him happy. And that was such a new feeling for me. I was just very like, this is good. This is good stuff. This is a person that will help me grow and become better instead of stifled and not myself. So feeling those feelings, I think as women, but also experienced women that go through divorce, I think you can rely on your intuition of feeling your way through. If someone is somebody that you feel like you can have a completely different experience with and be treated the way you deserve to be treated. And I would hold out for that 100%.
I think that's such amazing advice, because there's so many women that do continue to go into the cycle after a marriage or betrayal or abuse, that continue to fall back into that same cycle. So the fact that you say you are worthy, it's worth the wait, and to do things differently. I often tell people this is the second chance at life. You're just a little bit more educated, and yes, you have kids, but it's your chance to do it over again. And thankfully we have been able to do that. And you have been just such an incredible example of what a healthy relationship can look like after divorce and thriving. And I so appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
And just sharing your voice, because I think it's so powerful for women to be able to connect and realize that there is hope on the other side. Is there anything you want to leave with? Any last thoughts?
I would say, like, as painful for some people who are in the thick of it, as painful as all of this is, um, I think some of the very best women I know are going through a divorce or have gone through a divorce. And so it's a club you don't want to be in, especially at the beginning, but it's a really good club to be in because these are women who have had to face a lot of scary things. And they're working through it and learning how to trust themselves again. And I love what you're doing because you're connecting that. And I think that's really hard. I think that's hard to find those people to connect with. You know, I can find church people, my family, my friends, but still a lot of them haven't been through what I've been through.
Right.
And so to have a place where you can come and get connected with people who really do understand, it's a beautiful thing. I love what you're doing. I wish I'd had that when I was going through my divorce. But I hope I've been able to offer some things that can help people just get through. And please know that there is a beautiful life ahead of you wherever you are in the process. And I promise that. I know that for myself. I've seen it in other people. And again, the people that I know that are going through this right now, they're incredible women that deserve the best, and they deserve more than what they're used to. And believe that, hold on to it, write it down, read it to yourself every day if you have to, but don't settle, and know that there's full life and love to have. And you learn it from now these people that are helping and supporting you. And it's not where you wanted to learn it, but it's where you are. And it's a huge gift. And so when I say I look back on that period of time with fondness, I truly, truly do. It's amazing to me because it was so painful at the time. And the pain is just like sucked out of it now. It's gone. It's truly gone. There's still irritation and things. Don't get me wrong. It's not like I feel so, perfectly fine, but because it's still hard, but that pain is gone. And I look back and I just feel very, very grateful that it ended so I could get on with my life and make this beautiful life that I have now. And I never could have done that if I was stuck in it. And I'm really, really grateful that he pushed it to where I got unstuck and I had to figure things out for myself. And it's been an incredible journey, and it just gets better and better. I'm in school now. I'm in college. I work at a college. It's like, I never thought I would do that. You'll have every possibility open to you, and it's amazing. It really is amazing. And it comes, you just have to be patient and let time pass and let yourself heal a little bit and be so patient with yourself. That's what I would say.
Thank you, Shana, so much just for being so vulnerable and sharing your story and giving that hope. Gosh, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you and just everything that you've been through and sharing. So
thank you. Yeah. Absolutely. Thanks for what you're doing too. That's amazing.
Thank you.